All right, let's start with some housekeeping. Today's session will run for an hour, 45 minutes of presentation, followed by 15 minutes of live Q&A. So make sure to drop your questions so we can answer them at the end. All lines are muted to keep things running smoothly, and we are recording the session so you can revisit the content whenever you need. We are excited to have two speakers with us today, Warren Kentridge, Head of Americas for Sabre Direct Pay, and Megan Parfit, Director at Brex. With that said, Warren, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning and good afternoon, everybody, depending on where you are located. I am Warren Kentridge. I look after the North America and South America for Sabre Direct Pay. Today, we're going to be talking a bit about payments in general and how Sabre Direct Pay is solving for the needs of our fellow travel agencies around the world, but particularly in this case, North America. I've been in this role for 3 going on 4 years now. I come from an issuer and GDS background myself. So, well familiar with how I think agencies are working today. And I've been doing, payments for pretty much half my career now. So I think with that said, what I wanted to do first is sort of cover the what is or how a virtual payment actually works today. We don't know exactly on the call how much insights everyone has into a virtual payment. So what I want to do is just kind of give if you will, a payments 101 for a couple of slides. So what is a virtual card? A virtual card number. It is simply put a 16-digit MasterCard or Visa card, in our case, number that has a parameter for a payment that you wish to make. It is an individual card for every payment, and those parameters are set by yourself as an agency to say, I want to make a payment. I want to make a payment for an airline. That payment is going to be $100. I want to make it only for tomorrow, and I will only allow that payment to be for airlines. And by doing that, you are setting a parameter around a payment that you're able to make, that if anything had to happen around those parameters, the card simply would not authorize or work. So that brings, as you can imagine, a range of benefits around the security of a payment. But there's also a number of other benefits that a virtual card will bring to your agency. So what we have in front of you is really a kind of matrix view around payments in general. This is kind of not unique to Sabre or our partners. This is kind of a virtual payment overall scenario. So what we're saying here is right now we know agencies today are making payments in different methods. Mostly we would say you're making a bank transfer in the form of an ACH or a cash electronic payment. The other way is through the ARC or BSP, depending on where you're located, which is also essentially considered a settlement in cash if you're using the ARC settlement plan. And then you have a physical card, a physical credit card, or a plastic card. And those are kind of the 3 different ways in which one would pay today. So now if you look at the left side of the matrix, you can see the different kind of, I guess, situations when making a payment. Now, if you go from the bottom up, I like to do it because the bottom up is really the protection mechanism that virtual cards have. And you don't really get that anywhere else. You do get a sense of protection on a physical card through what they call a chargeback. So a chargeback really is that if you don't get a service you pay for, that you get your money back. That could be that the airline or the hotel would give your money back. But also, if they don't want to give your money back and you're owed your money, you could simply issue a chargeback to get your money back. Those chargebacks are supported by those major schemes of the world known as MasterCard or Visa. MasterCard or Visa are the ones that give the payment products to the banks to distribute to their customers, and in this case with us. Now, if you know anything about it, you'll probably have some questions about it, but chargebacks are, for us, quite simple and straightforward with our partners. But if you do it yourself, it can be quite a tedious process. So we try to bring that simplicity to get that chargeback service for you. Then if you think about fraud, fraud is, as I said, if you are making a payment with parameters against the payment you want to make, to have fraudulent activity on that is next to impossible. However, some people are very smart in the world, and if you do have any fraudulent activity in some shape or form, those chargebacks still apply. So in essence, you have full security of your payments when you're using a virtual card. There is no real fraud protection on any other form of payment in the world. So that is, I think, initially why virtual cards were ultimately released into the world many, many years ago, was because the fraud ratio is so high. And by using virtual cards, they were able to reduce that significantly. Another major benefit of virtual cards in general is a rebate that all of you should be enjoying when making a payment. When you make a payment with a bank transfer, you do not get any kind of rebate. When you're settling with BSP or ARC, again, there's absolutely no return on that payment. There is often a reward structure on a plastic card. So if you're using your Amex card maybe, or another bank card, there's often a rewards system associated to that payment. And I think the difference there is that with reward points, you're at the mercy of a platform. You're allowed to use points up to use for whatever the platform allows you to use it for. But with the rebate schemes for virtual cards, there is a percentage back to the agency. That percentage comes from the merchant service fees that all the merchants are accustomed to be paying. And within that merchant service fee, there is what we call the interchange. I'm not going to dive into the interchange breakdown because it can be complicated, but that interchange varies by certain markets. In North America, the interchange is approximately 2.65%, which the hotels and airlines are paying when taking cards. And you as a customer will ultimately earn from that share, that percentage that the merchants pay as a form of a rebate. And that would be a cash rebate back into your company if you were to use a virtual card for the payment. So for argument's sake, if you had to pay $100 and you were to get, potentially a 2% rebate, these rebates are varying based on your volumes. So if you're transacting at a higher value, you could be getting a couple points in rebates, and you would get 2% then back on that $100 transaction, as an example. So rebates, I think, are significantly important to any agency. In some cases, it's the volume driver, the incremental revenues for agencies going forward. And if you're not earning from a payment today, it is vital, I would say, that you get that earning potential for all your payments out. Another big one is automation. So we have our solutions integrated into all our systems. So there is already an immediate automation for you to use virtual cards through Sabre today, as the integrations have been done. But if you're using an API, there's also an API on our side to integrate the service independently, to be able to automate the generation of virtual cards for your supplier payments. That will ultimately streamline your operation when it comes to payments. The only other sense of an automation that you might be feeling today is the ARC settlement plan, which is ultimately integrated into the GDSs. So kind of similar concept there. And then reconciliation is an important, if not one of the most important factors around virtual cards. You will get third level data when using a virtual card. That third level data on our side comes from the bank, in terms of, from a settlement report. So you have a settlement report by the bank that is visible on our side. You would get the PNR or GDS level data if you were to use the payments through Sabre today. And you'll be able to have custom data fields that you would design, you can make mandatory, and those will be visible in your reports as well. So a lot more data, 3 different sets of data, and all visible in one place. And then finally, I think when you talk about low cost of cross-border or Forex payments, depending on how you work, there are solutions out there that can ultimately, if not remove Forex, or minimize your Forex exposure, depending on kind of the currency that you need and how you operate. But with virtual cards, there's a lot of flexibility when thinking about Forex and any costs you might be incurring today on Forex payments. You don't really have that anywhere else. Airline settlement plan might be the closest towards, looking into reducing your Forex charges. So as you can imagine, with all this said, virtual cards will bring you more control, reduce your risk, reduce your costs, give you automation and enhanced reconciliation. So when we talk to travel agencies, often what we find is there's two different scenarios. One is that they have this corporate base of business where their customers are asking them to help them deliver their payment methods to their suppliers. That is another whole different story. What we're talking about today is for you as a travel agency, when you're making your own payments, be it cash, settling ARC at the end of a 2-week cycle, or using your own business's physical cards. So just to kind of paint the picture, what we're talking about is merchant of record, which is a loose term, I think, in our industry, but ultimately means that you are, as an agency, the card account holder. You will open your own account or have already opened an account with a bank to be able to use cards of any kind, so any kind of payment method, if you will. It could be a treasury bank or what have you. So when you have that facility and you set up a virtual card within that bank, you will be able to then obviously receive money from your customer. You would take that money and you would put it into an account with your bank, or you have a credit account with your bank, either or, in which case you wouldn't need to put that money in immediately. Once that money is available, whether through credit or prepaid, you would then be able to generate your virtual cards up to the monetary value you have available, and you would pay all your suppliers independently and immediately, automatically, for every payment that you make with a virtual card. And then it goes back to those benefits that I mentioned before, that you will enjoy being a merchant of record. So talking about Sabre Direct Pay, and what are we doing in this space? Some of you might already know of a company called Confirma. Confirma was acquired by Sabre in August of 2022, I believe. We've always been leveraging the Confirma technology within our systems. It is how we are integrated inside Sabre with all our banking providers around the world. Confirma have 90 banks connected to them that if you wanted to use one of your own banks, those banks are ultimately connected. But what we do as Sabre Direct Pay, we are contracted with certain banks around the world to provide for local requirements or needs from our customers in each market, because every market has its own nuance and requirements. So in North America, one of our partners has joined on the call today is Brex. Brex is a fintech, and Megan will talk more about their solution overall. But we've identified Brex to be a really good offer for North America because, number one, they would have credit options, prepaid options, and they would have a very good rebate offer as a back end. And they are working with us on different kind of projects, specifically as it relates to North America. So it's a North American specific issuer, and we've given them the opportunity today to talk about their services and ultimately working in tandem with us to work with our customers. So eager to hear more from Megan, but ultimately what we're doing is we have Brexes all over the world, right? We have different banks in different markets. We have one maybe locally in Mexico and Brazil, Argentina, and also, within the whole Europe economic area, UK, Asia Pacific. So we have our partners all over the world, all banks and fintechs that we've contracted with as Sabre to bring their solutions to you. Some of the names that we're working with today in terms of kind of global brands, we have about 360 now, going on 400 agencies live transacting with us, which out of the 50 markets that we're serving. And our currency mix is really based on all the different issuers that we have. Right now, 19, going on 20 different banking offers that we bring. And I guess when we come into the picture, because we have all the partnerships and contracts and integrations, we become a distribution channel for our partners such as Brex, where we solve for the virtual cards requirements powered by our partner at Confirma, because they have that technology that we're still leveraging today. We manage the relationship with the banks as much as we need to, so we can take the commercial offers from our banks to you, or we can leave you to talk directly with them, either or. And we're also diving into how you can take money from cards yourself. So we call it acquiring options. Right now, we mostly focus on issuing cards, so that payment out for you to pay out. But we also are able to give you options to take money in. So how you can take cards from your customers if that's a need there, And then, we act as consultants across the board. So my team and I all come from issuer backgrounds in the travel space, and we are able to consult for you on all your end-to-end requirements as a business, to bring the solutions that we have across our base of partnerships. So talking just a little bit about Confirma, I mentioned that they have 90 different banks connected to them, and we've contracted with about 20 of those 90 banks. I want to just point out that Confirma ultimately are selling technology, right? They sell technology to Sabre. Even though we acquired them, we don't wholly own Confirma. Sabre has approximately 80% of Confirma, and Confirma are working with our competitor companies, Travelport and Amadeus. Is like, as you can imagine, they need to keep an independent approach in the market. However, we are essentially, and we have always been using the Confirma technology for our system. So they are completely integrated into Sabre, and they're integrated into all of our partners, obviously, so that we can bring those solutions to you. So ultimately, Confirma, they sell technology to their partners, which could be a TMC, for the TMC to access their banks or their customers' banks. Sabre Direct Pay, we are selling our partner banks, and we're using the technology that we are able to provide the banking services to our customers. So it's a bit of the other way around, if you will. Confirm also have some nice, great solutions out there that we are leveraging with Hotel Direct, which we'll talk about. Obviously, they're the leading provider of third-party virtual card technology. They are well known to be managing corporate cards for customers. So if you have your own base of customer business that want to use their own virtual cards, you can support that flow. And then going back to sort of what I've mentioned, on our side, we are looking at travel agencies as merchant of record, consult for those travel agencies, manage their needs from a banking perspective, and ultimately bring the best financial terms across all our partners to our customers. This is a global footprint that I've mentioned for between Sabre and Confirma. We're covering really the whole world. I think we need to dive probably further into Africa and more into LATAM. So it gives you an idea of some of the different banks connected to Confirma, but also kind of pointing out here that whilst we primarily work with MasterCard as a partner of ours and Visa as I guess, a runner-up, we also have all the other schemes connected. So if American Express has a need there, or Diners Club, we have these schemes, they're called schemes, connected to us as well. So UATP is kind of a big scheme at the moment that is being used to combat the airline acceptance. I won't dive too much into it, but it's an airline program allowing you to pay airlines. Right, so there is solution specifically there for traditional air carriers to make payments to them through UATP if the MasterCard or Visa networks are not accepted. So there's apparently a good discussion that we can dive into there in a separate calls for those interested. So if you think about the fact that on our side we have all these different banking providers, you might have your own bank, you might want to consider Brex as your provider. You could potentially have both those scenarios. So what we're saying right now on the left side here, you would have different bank providers that you're working with today, and you would have your own reports, all of them, connecting to them separately. What we're suggesting to do is work with us, use a single point of integration. So it's one API, whether it be in Sabre or out of Sabre, and you would connect all your banks into that single setup and have one report to reconcile all those banks in one place. That is kind of one of the key value drivers that our technology in partnership with Confirma brings to the table, is to have that consolidation from an issuing of cards perspective, but also consolidation of reporting as well in the back of that. It can be a big time saver, and it gives you that streamlined process as well. To support the multi-issuer capability, and this is probably just a nice to know right now, but there is a decision engine or orchestration configuration in the background of Sabre that you can decide by bank what card products to use. If you have more than one bank, you have failovers from one to the other. You can assign certain levels of transactions by a bank if you need to meet certain rebate thresholds. And you could also block a merchant from being paid. Like if you don't want to pay a certain airline because they don't want you to use a specific product, you can just block that. So you don't have to be concerned about what consultants might be doing in the background. It's a bit of a protection mechanism, if you will. But this generally applies more than, if you're using more than one issuer. So Hotel Connect is a very powerful tool by Confirma. It allows you to automatically send a virtual card to the the PMS of the hotel. There's over 100,000 connected to Confirma today. Hilton was a big announcement recently. But ultimately, if you do not have this, becomes very tedious and in some cases impossible to get card information to a hotel. So this is their bread and butter. It's an example of a form that would be used for an authorization there. But there's 4 different ways in which this card information will be sent to the hotel. This is all integrated into Sabre. So you could easily go onto Sabre. You would have an entry, a cryptic command within Sabre, or a point and click within Sabre today. You could add the form of payment as a virtual card number via Brex or your own bank, and you'll be able to issue your PNR with a virtual card already in there. It's all integrated, it's all done. And if it's for hotel, that'll immediately be connected to the hotel piece and sent to their PMS systems. So a lot of work and a lot of integration done on and for your behalf here. And all it takes really is for you to open up the bank account that you want. With our partner, hopefully they'll see the benefits of doing that. Otherwise, with your bank, and you'll be able to start using the service. So as you can imagine by now, we've got 3 different ways in which we operate. We do have the web portal, which is essentially a Sabre white label of Confirma that you'll be able to log on there, generate a virtual card, buy Brex, and send that manually to any provider. It can be air, car, hotel, any travel and entertainment. We have agencies using it for meetings and incentives, restaurants, insurance even. So as long as it's not gambling, you can use a virtual card to pretty much pay anything. And that's what a web portal is good for. Any content in Sabre that's payable, you have the GDS integration, it's live for many years. And then you have the agnostic API through either Confirma or Sabre. So you have Sabre's APIs if you're using them, or Confirma Direct API, which will connect to any kind of platform that you're using today. I mentioned reporting. It is a unique tool available through Confirma. The tool is very simple, easy to use. Obviously, it has those sets of data that I've mentioned before, and what you're seeing on the screen is a quick little showcase about how easy it is to work. It's live. You can pull these reports at any time. It will give you the end-to-end transaction level information. And it is available through an SFTP, which means you can consolidate your reports, you can extract those through APIs, and will give you more information than I think you will have been seen today from your payments. So for Sabre Direct Pay, I think this was a very high-level presentation. There is definitely an opportunity for us to dive in a little deeper. For any of those who'd like to have conversations with my team or with Brex or both. And ultimately what we would need to do is, number one is to get a commercial proposal from Brex for any of those that want to see some rebate offers. And if you're interested and happy with your rebate, we would do an application process with the partner Brex. If you were a Sabre customer, there's a simple 1-page addendum for the product without any commercials in there. It's just to say you're taking the Sabre product, so we can set it up for you within Sabre. And then you would go through your due diligence process with the bank, so they would approve your accounts. And then you would have the integration process if you were to use API or just to set up, implement your card accounts within Sabre, so you can start enjoying the rebates and the protection that virtual cards bring. And once you're at that point, we also have account management on Sabre Direct Pay. Obviously, you have the Sabre account management that you can leverage as well, and we will work in tandem with that to support you end to end from Sabre. So that's enough from me. I'm going to hand over to my friend, colleague, and partner, Megan Parfit, who I work with every day, just about. So I know you need to share your screen, Megan, if you'd like to go ahead and do that, and then feel free to jump in.
Perfect. I will do that. Thank you, Warren. Okay. All right. Can I get a thumbs up just that we're seeing my screen here? Perfect. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for your time today. As Warren said, my name is Megan Parfit. I head travel payments here at Brex. I have been in the travel and payment industry for my career as well, previously with American Express for about a decade. So very familiar with some of the opportunities for enhancement that legacy banks and other payment providers kind of led me to Brex, right? And why I think we support Sabre's customers so well. But I will kind of give you just a high level overview of kind of who Brex is, but really spending the majority of the time focusing on specifically how we support Sabre's customers and virtual cards today. But at a very high level, Brex is a fintech out of San Francisco. We started with corporate cards for startup companies that had unique profiles or cash rich, didn't have a long history of revenues or business tenure. And so we were able to find a solution that gave more agility to the onboarding of strategic customers. Based off of feedback that we got from our customers, we've then continued to build out our technology and the way that we support those customers. So that ranges from everything from virtual cards and physical cards based off of the MasterCard World Elite Network, as Warren had mentioned. But it also expands to nuanced products like Ghost or Lodge cards or business travel accounts. As well as banking alternatives. So we have high yield operating accounts with high FDIC coverage. So lots of different areas that we can kind of support any aspect of money movement within your organization. So while today's conversation will really be focusing on how we support virtual cards within this merchant of record model that Warren laid out, please note that we see your company as the full ecosystem of ways that may need coverage. So again, banking, physical cards, expense management, anything that we can do to support your business. Together with Sabre, you really have a consolidated offer with these two partners. These are, I would say that the main reasons why travel management and OTAs, consolidators, tour operators, choose Brex. First and foremost, our global credit limit. So this is going to be a significant difference compared to kind of legacy providers in the sense that we give one consolidated global limit across all of your entities. So we're able to actually review your global footprint and revenues versus just individual entities. So you can really leverage your overall spending power. We, again, operate off of the MasterCard World Elite Network. So highest worldwide acceptance. We operate in over 150 different countries, which I'll jump into more detail here in a second. But really allowing you to optimize for not only acceptance, but reduced costs in FX optimizations, eliminating cross-border fees. So that kind of speaks to our local billing. So we're able to offer Canadian cards and allow you to settle in Canadian dollars, as an example. And then together with all of this service, along with Sabre, you will have a dedicated implementation and customer success team to really ensure that the partnership is successful and built for scale. So as I mentioned, the MasterCard partnership, these are just some high-level statistics on where the Brex cards are supported and accepted. Our average acceptance rate in the travel industry is 98.7%. So last month alone, in the last rolling 30 days, we did $62 million in travel transactions between air, hotel, and car. And of those transactions, we had, again, close to 100% of acceptance in those cleared transactions. So a huge difference, especially across regions outside of the US, where you may be running into gaps or challenges with partners like American Express in some of those, international markets. Based on the setup and how Brex structures your accounts, as I mentioned, you have one unified limit across the entire organization that you can then set up for reconciliation purposes, for acceptance purposes, whatever it may be, separate entities to process your transactions. So we have here, you get very busy slide. I'm going to send this afterwards, so don't feel like you need to memorize it. But here is just a list of all of the currencies that we actually support locally. So while our US card will work across the globe with, again, that 98.7% acceptance, we also optimize for FX by allowing you to pay in region with local currency. So the most important column here on this slide is local card. And essentially what this first check mark means is that you can issue and pay in a like-for-like manner. So again, just using that Canada example in the beginning, you can issue a local Canadian dollar card to maximize for acceptance, and you can settle in Canadian dollars from your regional bank account within Canada. So again, avoiding any FX fees or cross-border implications that you may have with those transactions. Here's a little bit of the flow of how these card provisionings would work together with Sabre. So Brex, in this instance, operates as your bank or your funding mechanism. And then Sabre and Confirma are the technology behind those card provisioning tools. So together with Sabre and Confirma, we'll be able to build in and optimize a card orchestration to say if this transaction or vendor is in Canada or in Brazil, we want you to call the Canadian dollar card or the Brazil real. So that way we're, again, optimizing for that FX conversion, and you're settling in that local region. There may also be like local regional taxes, like in Brazil with IOF, if any of you are familiar with that, that having a Brex card in place eliminates those additional fees. So you are really able to net out the ultimate ROI on the rebate without incurring any additional fees. This is something that the Sabre team and myself are very equipped to handling specific in-region nuanced conversations. We really, truly want to be a consultant and a partner to your organizations in helping you grow and scale your strategic virtual card usage. Not every vendor and not every region is a perfect fit for a virtual card. We're here to help you determine where you can maximize them, increase rebates, and reduce costs. As I mentioned in the beginning, we aren't just a virtual credit card provider. We are a full end-to-end corporate card and spend management tool. So if consolidating into one financial institution is of interest to you, our services extend far past air, travel, and hotel, and we can support any direct procurement needs that you may have. So here's just a little snapshot of kind of what's included in those Brex card, whether they be the virtual or physical cards. But as Warren had mentioned in the beginning, very detailed levels of controls around merchant categories, around fraud protection, and then, some of these kind of touch on how we support just general corporate card spend for either your employee travel or other elements that you may have. So things like auto-generated receipt capture. Again, because we are MasterCard's largest partner and issuer, we're able to capture their raw data at time of transaction and create IRS compliant auto-generated receipts at time of transaction. We also have a breadth of integrations with accounting, with ERPs, with your HR services. So there's other ways that we can continue to optimize and automate your month-end process as well. So the biggest question that we tend to get is, I love everything you said, but do I qualify? These are the three main requirements that Brex needs to open an account and to meet our KYC and regulatory requirements. So the first and foremost is a U.S. entity. So while your headquarters may not be in the U.S., as long as you have an entity and holding company, trading company, whatever it may be in the U.S., we can have you apply under that to meet our KYC requirements while onboarding you with a multi-entity. So even if you don't spend in the US, we would just use that entity to open up your account, and then we would support you in whatever region you may need assistance. So, so this may be an emerging market for you. Maybe you're under contract with another issuer for the majority of your business, but you want to explore kind of a diversification across your providers. And in this instance, Brex is happy and eager to meet you where you're at and operate on more of a land and expand model. So maybe it's just supporting your growth in EMEA, and then we can expand to other regions afterwards. And this kind of helps us do that by opening your account under these parameters. There are certain exceptions like years in business or revenues if you are more of a cash-rich organization. So happy to take those as a one-off scenario with individual one-on-one conversations. Warren and I will be following up with our contact information. We will also be providing your account managers with Sabre these details as well, so you can reach out to them and they can coordinate a joint conversation to explore how we can support your specific business needs. Things like your credit needs. Is working capital or cash flow important? Is that float something that you are really prioritizing in your virtual card program? Or are you on the other end of the spectrum where you are quite a liquid organization, cash flow is not as strategic of a priority for you, and you want to ultimately maximize the highest rebates and highest revenue back to the company that virtual credit cards provide? So you can think of credit limit and rebate as kind of a dynamic sliding scale. So as float increases, rebates shorten, and as payment settlement increases, your rebates also then in turn increase. So we'll work with you again on that one-on-one basis to set up what makes the most sense for your organization. But truly think of us as a partner that scales. So just because your priorities now may be cash flow, down the road they may be rewards. And so we're able to pivot and adjust based off of your business, and then grow into the different modules should they make sense for your organization that Brex can provide. So whether that's your funding source as a business banking account, or a spend management tool within our expense module, whatever that may be, we're happy to support anything that your organizations need. I've added a few appendix slides on kind of what underwriting looks like with Brex, some additional global coverages, and insurance coverages with MasterCard. I won't go into detail here on those items, but again, you'll have this full deck in the follow-up information post-webinar.